I've discussed the twice 11 brethren before in this video linked in the description. But just to refresh, the twice 11 brethren was an amorphous group of men that Francis Bacon referenced cryptically in his work several times. I've speculated that twice 11 may be referencing music, specifically the note of F sharp in the harmonic series, that when doubled into its first octave occupies harmonic 22. In the earlier video, as well as chapter 14 of my book, I discussed Bacon's encoded message in New Atlantis, pointing us toward a possible conspiracy, a musical tuning war that pits harmonic 22 against harmonic 23, and that the twice 11 brethren were perhaps expressing their support for harmonic 22. Today, though, I'd like to look at some of the references to the group's existence. The most obvious reference is this one, from the 42nd book of Job in the King James Bible, a work commissioned by his half-brother, James Stewart, and edited by Bacon. This reference was originally featured on John Anthony's YouTube channel. Anthony is an Oxfordian, meaning that he believes Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, was the true author of Shakespeare. In contrast, I'm a Baconian, but I do believe that the works of Shakespeare were likely a group effort. The location of twice 11 brethren in Book 42 highlights a number that keeps appearing. Peter Amundsen shows the significance of its factors, 6 and 7, in the Masonic logo. Amundsen points out that the main symbol of Freemasonry is based on a geometry of 6 horizontal measures by 7 vertical ones, representing the 7 steps of the ladder to heaven, the product of which is 42. And it's also used in this old nursery rhyme that's very relevant to our topic. 10 and 10 and twice 11, take out 6 and put in 7. The first evidence I can find of this rhyme comes from a 19th century book, Nursery Rhymes of England, by Halliwell, but I suspect it's much older. The rhyme may have been a way for kids to remember that 6 times 7 is 42, or to remember that 10 plus 10 plus 11 plus 11 is also 42. But the numbers of 6, 7, 42, and twice 11 appearing together seems not entirely random. My own interest in the twice 11 brethren came about when I plotted the first 2 lines, in Latin, of the Shakespeare Funerary plaque into a 9-column grid and found the word 1 that showed up twice. When I plot a grid, I sometimes try different numbers of columns until I can find a grid that will produce a grouping of 2 or 3 T's, or taus, as the tau is an important symbol in Freemasonry. Here I found one vertical line of 3 T's that I highlighted in yellow, and the 2 1s became obvious shortly after. Initially, I thought 2 1s might represent 11, so I looked for a 2 or a twice, but found nothing like that. However, I noticed the word ELVE shown here in blue, which sounds very similar to 11 in Danish. On top of that, if you add the green N above it, you have all the letters to make 11 in English as well. 2 1s and an 11 could easily represent the concept of twice 11, and the words appeared in the shape of a 4, which is the number of 1s that would be present in twice 11. But then I noticed another Danish word next to elve, a word I wasn't expecting to see. 12. It's the Danish word for 12. Next I saw the simple words of ni and ti for 9 and 10. The sum total of 9, 10, 11, and 12 brings us back around to the beginning, as these numbers add up to 42. I then plotted the rest of the funerary plaque onto a 7-column grid that yielded the words toe, toe, brethren, and rose, a Baconian symbol for another day. But here again we have a Danish number, toe, meaning 2, and the presence of Danish numbers clearly points us back to Hamlet, a play set in Denmark. In the very first few lines of Scene 1 of Hamlet, we meet two characters named Horatio and Marcellus, the latter a name with 2 L's. Now 2 lowercase l's look like one number 11, but in the 1600s the letter L in simple gematria had a value of 11, making any grouping of 2 L's a twice 11. Early in the play, Marcellus describes the ghost of Hamlet's father as twice seen of us. In Danish, one is pronounced een, and this line would sound like twice one in Danish, twice een. A few lines earlier, Marcellus has described himself and Horatio as liege men to the Dane, reminding the audience that these men are Danish and speakers of the Danish language. This was perhaps necessary because of his ancient Roman name, and I think Shakespeare here was alluding to Marcus Claudius Marcellus, the commander of the Roman army that sacked Syracuse, a battle that resulted in the death of the Greek astronomer and mathematician Archimedes. So what is special about Archimedes that might refer to the musical ideas Bacon has already encoded? In his biography of Marcellus, Plutarch tells us that, although Archimedes made many excellent discoveries, he is said to have asked his kinsmen and friends to place over the grave where he should be buried a cylinder enclosing a sphere, with an inscription giving the proportion by which the containing solid exceeds the contained. That proportion, or ratio, was 3:2. The volume of the cylinder being 1/3 larger than the volume of the sphere it contained. In my book, The Next Octave, I cover the importance of this ratio, 3:2, as expressing the perfect fifth interval in music and its position as mies. One aspect of the perfect fifth is central to Freemasonry. The G note is the perfect fifth off the note of C, the very first note produced by the harmonic series. So here in Hamlet, Shakespeare alludes to Archimedes' tomb, pointing us to the ratio of 3:2, the perfect fifth, and the importance of the mies. How can we be sure that this ratio is the message Bacon was encoding? Not only is the name Horatio a clue, but his partner's namesake Marcellus built the tomb of Archimedes and placed the cylinder and sphere on top in 211 BC. In looking for other passages from Hamlet to drop into a grid, I decided to use sets of 3 or 4 lines all starting with the letter T, or tau. I found this one in Act 1, Scene 2 that immediately produced 2 sets of double taus. At the top is the word toe twice, which again means 2 in Danish. This creates the phrase two brothers, as well as the word rosy and bror, meaning brother in Danish. The pink shape of a key on the right side is comprised of the words one, and broth. There is no English word twice present in the text, but the words to gong mean twice in Danish. Below all of that is the word elue, and because u's and v's were interchangeable in Elizabethan times, this word could be read as elva. Below that, a T for 10 and een for 1, making 2 more 11s. To the right of this, Bacon clearly encoded references to the mies and mezi. Next, I dropped this passage from Act 3, Scene 1 into an 11-column grid. Here we see Elva in green and Tuice in purple. Because U and V are interchangeable and because V and W were also interchangeable between Danish and German, this word could be referencing twice. Another name with what looks like an 11 in the spelling is Othello. And in the first act of this play, the term brothers appears 22 lines up from the bottom of its page. This is a potential clue, so it would make this section a good candidate for plotting on a grid. When this entire speech by Brabantio is placed in a 17-column grid, a few messages do appear. First, we see that above the word brother is the contraction of TWC for twice, and L. Again, in Elizabethan gematria, L was the 11th letter, so this could easily signify twice 11. Next, we can see the phrase middle C. Below that is F clef, the bass clef indicating that twice 11 is a tone below middle C. Twice 11 would be an octave F sharp, but the F sharp just below middle C is harmonic 176, a possible echo of the 6 and 7 we looked at earlier. At this point, it's obvious that Shakespeare, or Bacon and whoever else was involved, was quite committed to encoding references to the twice 11 brethren. But in addition to the 1611 King James Bible and these Shakespeare plays, we also find its mention encoded into works specifically authored by Francis Bacon himself. The word brethren appears twice in Bacon's Silva Silvarum, which includes the essay of New Atlantis. The first appearance is on page 10 of New Atlantis, and if we draw a line at a 37-degree angle off the opposite page's number, the first 11, the line takes us to the top of the word brethren. The line then intersects a giant L, giving us the necessary second 11. So why 37 degrees? A hint is given in the story, as the stranger's house has been laying up revenue, or saving money, for 37 years. But in the documentary Cracking the Shakespeare Code, Petter Amundsen showed that the numbers 37 and 53 were important Masonic geometric numbers that were encoded into the logo, which contains two right triangles with interior angles of 53 and 37 degrees. The next appearance of the word brethren occurs on page 121. If we now draw a 53-degree line from that page number, which is the product of 11 times 11, the line takes us to the words Brethren of the Rose. This is not an overt reference to the Brotherhood of the Rosy Cross. Instead, it's a scientific text on flowers, but we're free to interpret its meaning as we like. If we then extend this line, it intersects the italicized title of another section of Silva Silvarum, The Conservation of Bodies, which may have been what the brethren were up to. The conservation of manuscript papers using quicksilver or mercury. In my view, these varied references to the twice 11 brethren eventually circle back to the 1611 King James Bible and a specific chapter and verse, Matthew 11:11. Here, Jesus is giving tribute to John the Baptist. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. But although it's true that Bacon, De Vere, the Freemasons, and the Rosicrucians were all devoted to John the Baptist, I don't think that's the full message here. There's something else much more subtle going on. If we look at the original Greek text, the word used in Matthew 11:11 for greater is meson, very closely related to the Greek words meson and mes. And here we have twice written in Greek the word meson. Not only is this drawing attention to the importance of the mes, but I think Bacon might be suggesting here that John the Baptist is the regulating mes, serving the same musical purpose of the perfect fifth, to facilitate our ascension from the material power of 2 to the spiritual power of 3 to the realm of the Christ. For more information on the Mies, you can also check out my earlier video, The Muse of Mies, linked in the description. I'm grateful for any feedback. Please leave your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching.